Hello and welcome to my author's chat of the week, and I'm going to start keeping my eye out for my co-host. And as always, we'll be talking about books, writing, publishing, and everything in between. And I know I've been behind the scenes between editing everything, working on a couple fun upcoming projects, and kind of gearing up for the fact that I will be attending Lit RPG Con in a few weeks. So I'm trying to get everything ready for that trip. And I'm really excited about that. But beyond that, let me go keep an eye out, see if she is out and about. Yes, and send the invite, and we'll get things rocking and rolling in just a few minutes. Let's see. Perfect. Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you quite yet. I know there's a way to turn your camera on, and I think someone told me that it's, yes, perfect. Haha.
Hi, okay, good.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for hosting this.
Of course. I love always meeting other people in the book community, especially here. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love your backdrop. I have a proper office with a bookshelf and all my books, but today there's overlap in household meetings, so I
It's
gotta do it in
okay.
here.
I understand. It's the one nice thing of kind of setting up before a bookshelf is when people like log on, they're like, okay, I have a feeling I know what topic this is about.
Right. It's smart. And again, I it's all next door, but not today. So just have a
It's true.
pile of books here.
Yay! Okay, we'll
Uh,
definitely get to some of those examples, but just to do the little basic run through in case you haven't seen any of my live chats, they're pretty conversational. If anybody in the kind of messaging feed pops in a bookish related question or comment, I try to make note of those because if this platform is nice, sometimes it's not. I'll repurpose this on my YouTube channel down the line to put all your contact information down below. But beyond that, since you're my co-host today, I will let you do two things. One, I'll let you be the time stopper. Just let me know when you need to say goodbye because I know you need to leave a little earlier than I'm used to, so I might forget. And two, why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you write?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I just have to stop at 10 till to go to another meeting because I work from home, so it's always
I
many
understand.
things. Yeah. Anyways, okay, I'm Jamie Pacton. I'm the author of many books for young adults and kids and also adults. My most recent release is called The Hyacinth Labyrinth, and I just signed a contract on my 10th book, so it's been a very busy like last 5 years. Um, yeah, so I also have another book coming out in August. It's the second book in an adult fantasy romance. And so, yeah, I've been doing this for a while for my day job. I teach English at the college level, which I've also been doing for a very long time. Yeah, so that's the short. I also live in Portland, Oregon, so it's very rainy and gray here today.
It's okay. I mean, it was rainy here a few days ago, so I think well, actually, it goes the other way. We're going to probably be getting your rain at some point
Yeah.
since on the East Coast. Oh no. Actually, I'll take it because it's so hot here in Georgia. It is
Oh,
scarily
you're
hot.
from Georgia. I'm from East Tennessee, so I know those long, hot summers.
Yep.
And
Oh yeah.
yeah.
So let me ask, what was it? I mean, obviously, you said you teach literature at the college level, but what made you decide you wanted to write a book from the get-go? Because that's something that people think about a lot, but not everybody follows through with that endeavor. So, what
Yeah,
inspired
that's a
you to
good
write a book?
question. I wanted to write for a very, very long time. I remember being like 10 years old and writing my first little story and being very jazzed up about that. I'm the oldest of 10 kids, so I used to write plays for my long-suffering siblings and make them participate. So I've always just loved books and writing, and I think at some point, like many kids and many authors, you get to that point of like, oh, I could do this. And I grew up before there was fan fiction, so which I would have loved to have been in the fan fiction universe, but that just wasn't like a thing happening in the 80s and 90s. So yeah, I always wanted to do that. And I wrote a lot of like very serious poetry in high school and got a literature degree in college. I thought I was going to be a brain surgeon, and then I am very clumsy, and so I worked a lot of biology jobs. And I broke a lot of glassware in those jobs. So I was like, I should not be in people's brains. Let's follow my other passion, which was
Fair
literature.
enough.
Yeah, and so it took me a long time to get published, though. I had kids, I got a master's in English. I sort of evolved my teaching career. I did a lot of writing for magazines.
Hmm.
Um, And then I kept working on books. And so I wanted to do this for a long time. It just took a many years for the pieces to come together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is everybody's writing journey is so different. And some
Yeah.
people jump right in and try to write a book their first time. Other people have gone through various different routes, like you have, like where you've gotten some education in the literature side of things. You are publishing short stories beforehand, and all those build up skills that will help you at some way, shape, or form when you're writing a full book. But compared to writing short stories, how different is it for you to write a full length novel?
Okay, so actually, I think I may have mischaracterized. I wrote articles and I was a
Oh,
columnist at
articles.
like,
Okay, articles.
yeah, so I was a
Wait,
columnist at Parents Magazine for a long time. I wrote about
wait.
neurodiversity for other things. My first short story actually only just got published last year, and I think short stories are way harder. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? I'd rather write a full book any day. Yes, it takes longer, but it's so much more time. Like in a short story, you have to be very thoughtful and compact about what you choose and how you deliver it. And I do love a book format. So yeah, I am not a prolific short story writer by any means. I would do more of it, but it's challenging. I don't know. One thing about the journey you said, I do think it's a lot easier for, maybe not easier for people to get published, but there's a lot more information and there's a lot more channels now. I remember being in my college dorm room and getting these, like, the massive guides of literary agents,
Yeah.
or like, here's a packet to help you learn how to publish. Like, I wanted to do it for a long time, but the bar for entry was much steeper just for figuring out who to talk to and how to get to them. And now you can see what agents want on social media and you can query online. And like, I think that that's really wonderful that more people are like immediately out of the gate, like, I want to write a book. Let's do it,
And just the fact that we have places like Book Talk where we're hanging out right now,
Yeah.
that you can actually talk to other authors who may have be at a different stage in their writing career than you, and you can ask questions and learn from them. Because yeah, my first book published 10 years ago, and trying to figure out how to do that back then compared to today, and having all the accessibility of the various kind of platforms that are out today versus 10 years ago, it's dramatically different. Not to
Yeah.
say anything is like super easy, but it's nice to be able to have resources far more readily available.
Yeah. It's
Because
not easier to write or
yeah,
publish a book or
no,
get a publisher, but it's easier to find information on how you might go about those things. And
exactly.
that's, I think, very good.
So let me actually ask, for the first book that you have had published, what is that particular storyline, and what's like the backstory of why you wrote that particular book?
Okay, so let's go way back. So actually, my
Yeah.
first book I got published came out in 2019, and it's under a pen name, and it was an IP book with Penguin Random House. So we don't really talk about that one, but when I tally my numbers, there is a book that I wrote. I think it's out of print now because it came out like a few months before the pandemic.
Oh yeah.
And so the way that book came about is I sent in a sample, I won the audition, I wrote the book very quickly. But then my first book, which I don't have a copy of here, The Life in Medieval Times of Kit Sweetly, that one came about. So I actually got an agent back in 2016 through Pitch Wars, and that was for a middle grade book. So my first agent was at a very big agency, very high powered. That book went to acquisitions 4 times. It didn't
Mhm.
quite get picked up, which is heartbreaking. I loved that book. And so then I wrote another book in between when that one, I left my agent. I wrote another book, which was very, very angry. It was after the 2016 election. And I queried that and I didn't get anything. So then I wrote The Life in Medieval Times of Kit Sweetly because I wanted something fun. After that sort of angry girl, dark revenge story. And so we had gone to medieval times, my daughter and and I had wondered, like, wait, are there no lady knights here? And there's someone here on TikTok right now, Christina, who's doing a whole campaign to get lady knights at medieval times. She's basically like the real life heroine of my story. Um,
Neat.
so that story started with one, a desire to write something fun, and two, a trip to medieval times that had me asking questions. And so that one came out in 2020. And then my agent, I actually have now, wanted to sign me for the dark fantasy and then also this other one, and she's become my career agent. So after that, it was another YA contemporary, and then we started in on the fantasies. And I've worked with the same editor for all of my YA books. So
Wow.
she moved houses, but um, we we have this great working relationship. So things have kind of evolved one after the other in a
Yeah.
very interesting way. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is when you find someone that you click with, it's you, at least for me, like you do whatever you can to keep that relationship going, especially when it's like someone that's helping you with one of your passions or your career. And I consider art and writing and any of that. Those are careers too, even if it may not be your only one. So it's a
Even if
very,
it doesn't pay your bills, yeah.
yeah,
So what about you? Do you talk about yourself in these? Like, tell me about your
like I said,
journey.
if ever you want to just jump in and ask a question, feel free. And if not, usually I have questions. I'm so used to these, but yeah, I'm an independent author at this point in time. I don't mind the idea of hybridizing down the line, but I'm very comfortable in the independently published space. And as I kind of mentioned a little bit ago, my first book was published in 2016. And since then, I have 9 full lengths and 16 novellas in various omnibus forms out, and one short story that just came out in my first anthology that I've participated in. So it's been a lot of fun figuring things out. And like you, I've ranged from YA, new adult, to the adult side of things. I haven't dabbled in children's, but it's kind of a fun thing to be able to write different age brackets, though I've come to realize my state right now, I do like the darker side of fantasy, and so I'm listening more and more to just the adult side versus the YA, but that's just where I am. Maybe in another few years it'll switch back, but it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I range all different kind of fantasy, from the light and bright questing forward stuff all the way to the dark, almost grimdark retellings of various mythos, and so
Yeah.
it's a little bit of variety. I love it.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that your ability to move around like that. Sometimes, I mean, what I do and what I work on next is determined by what's in a contract or where I want to go. But I do feel that shift towards going darker as well. Like everything I'm working on now, with the exception of this random, like jolly middle grade, is a lot darker. And I was just thinking about that today. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. The happier I am, the darker I write stuff, and I feel
Yeah.
like if I start writing a lot of light and bright and fluffy stuff, people should probably ask if I'm okay. I don't know.
I should check on you. Send a meal. Yes.
My
Um,
escapism. But
that's hilarious.
for you, I know you showed you had some book examples. Which ones do you have, since you have a plethora?
Oh, I've got these three on my desk right now. This is my fantasy, uh, young adult fantasy. It's not quite a series, connected standalone. So the Vermilion Emporium was first in
Ooh,
2022.
really?
Yeah, and then the Absinthe Underground came next in 24. And then this one just came out in 2026. So these are all set in the same world. And there is one character. This character, Chloe, is actually in all three books. And she
Fun.
finally got her own book in Hyacinth Labyrinth. So yeah, those are the ones I have at hand. But
Well, with the standalone series, it sounds kind of odd when you say it, but yes, I get the concept where each book you can read by itself, but they're all kind of related in the same world basis. And like you mentioned, one character kind of pops in and out. Did you know with the first book that you were going to get to that third book and, change to that particular character? Or were you just excited about writing book one and you had no idea of the other books in that particular series?
good question. So some of my other books, like that darker sort of fantasy I wrote in 2016, was definitely planned as a duology. Like I
Mhm.
have all of these ideas that are planned as like connected duologies with story just ends, and you're like, oh no, what happens next? These were not that. So Vermilion Emporium got bought as a standalone, but within a two-book contract. And when I was writing it, I wrote some characters in. They kind of popped up. I was like, oh, I'd really love to I'd
Mhm.
love to meet you again in a different book, but I had no sense that that could happen. So what happened is Vermilion finished. It was time for book two of my contract, and I had been carrying around this idea that became the seeds of Absinthe Underground. So this is about two roommates and poster thieves in like a um, Belle Epoque type Paris, but in a fantasy
Okay.
world, who
Yeah.
get hired by an actual green fairy to do a heist in the Fey realm. And so, but the seeds of this idea started in 2012 when I went to a Posters of Paris exhibit at the Milwaukee Art Museum,
Mm.
which was all Toulouse-Lautrec posters and some of that big, vibrant energy. And I saw this tiny placard that was about poster thieves and how they would scrape the posters off the wall and then give them to art collectors because artists were hired to do these. So they became so much more than just like commercial advertisements. They became art objects. And I was so intrigued by those poster thieves. I knew they were two girls. I knew they lived together and I knew they lived in a Paris type thing. I tried it as a historical. It didn't work. So when it came time for book two in this Vermilion contract, I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Mhm.
Maybe this is where this poster thieves idea that I've been carrying around for 9 years at that point. Maybe I could make it work there, and so it kind of slotted in and became this whole thing. But then again, Chloe, this same character from book one, I put her in book two. One, because it worked, and two, I was like, maybe my editor will find this irresistible when it comes time. So in book one, I had no sense of a longer series. By book two, I had connective tissue and a hope. And that we got book three was really quite delightful. But it was hard because, do you write series or do you write
I do,
storylines?
yeah.
Yeah. So
Predominantly series.
you plan things totally differently. And I think, you have um, a sense of what's going to happen in
Mhm.
like book one for book three. I had a lot of like filling in to do because in book one I had mentioned things that by the time we got to book three and I had this whole dense magical world, I had to like maintain the promise and the through line that I had started in book one, but I hadn't planned it in advance. So it was a lot of like, wait, why does this work? Okay, here's why this works. Here's how it fits. I think it would probably be easier to do it the way you did, simply because you're setting things up in advance. But I don't know. I'm working on book four in this world, so we'll see if it comes through.
Well, I will.
And at least
Oh yeah, yeah. Wait, yeah. Okay, so you have a fourth book coming out. Ooh, this
no,
might.
it's not. It's not signed yet.
Okay,
It is
an idea.
pitched as a proposal, but it will be in the same world but different characters. And again, another standalone.
Hmm.
So any of these you could read all like separately, but
That's neat. I was gonna say, yeah. As someone who I do tend to write series, and for the most part, my earlier series, I always knew exactly like how many books or where it was going to end, more or less. Obviously, things can change a little bit along the way, but the way I've been writing different now, it's kind of changed things. Where I have a upcoming series that my dream is that it'll be an open ended. I'm going to go with it as long as it feels like it can continue in a way that makes sense, but I'll structure mini trilogies within it. So then I'm only concerned with three at a time. But then if the door is open, I can then continue on with the next trilogy set in the
yeah,
same reality kind of thing, if that makes sense.
yeah, totally makes sense. That's awesome. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, so outside of this particular book series, what are some of the other ones you worked with? Because you said you have a whole variety, again, from the middle grade you had just come out, you mentioned,
No,
correct?
there was a middle grade that came out in 2019. I have one that I just is it's about ready to go out on proposal, like to get
Mm-hmm.
on submission. Um, yeah, so the next book that's coming out is an adult book, an adult fantasy romance. That's the second book in a I mean, they're connected, but it's like the best friend and the cousin. So again, you don't have to read book one to get to book two.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that one comes out August 18th.
Ooh. That's kind of cool. And with all these books you mentioned, it sounds like you're writing multiple a year. How do you find time with your day job as, you're teaching and then this other job? Because again, it's another job. How do you be, able to balance everything?
I'm a little manic about the whole thing. I'm supposed to be taking a week off, and I've decided to break that down to 2 days off because I just can't.
Mm-hmm.
I am fairly relentless with the pace. Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to be slowing down a little bit on what's due for deadline and just kind of moving into my own projects. I do try and write every day. I don't always get there. I don't know. I have this flow. My career's been online for so long that I like, do teaching work in the morning and then do some writing work and then come back to teaching work if I need to. What about you? Do you sit down and write 1,000 words a day? Like my current goal with all of these, I've got three projects I want to like really steadily work on over the summer. And I used to be able to sit down and do like 3,000 words a day, but I'm not there right now. So my goal is 500 words a day on each project. So just like a quick 20-minute, like 500 words. Doesn't matter if it's bad, just do it. Um, and then that will accumulate over time, so that by August, September, I should have at least like 50,000 new words on a couple different projects.
That's nice. No, yeah, what I do is I'm right now balancing both. I'm an artist and an author, so I have a little more availability to kind of focus on writing than some other people are capable of. So I understand that, but honestly, I focus on. I don't like challenging myself to do a particular word count a day because sometimes if I'm working a very dense scene or one of those kind of setups, it takes me a lot longer to focus and set that scene versus something
Mhm.
for me that's a little quicker, like dialogue or an action sequence. So I challenge myself to like do a chapter a day. And, depending on the length of the chapter, it could be a little bit more, but that's 2,500 words. So it's not as crazy as it sounds. And I only write 5 days a week.
I was gonna say, are you writing a book a month? So are you writing a book every month and a half?
Well, it depends if you want to qualify that 40,000 words as a book, because my books are a little longer. And I actually, funny enough, had a couple friends have this discussion. One was saying, you can say you write a book a month when you hit that 40,000 and one word mark. And someone else was like, but that's not my books are. My books are like 200,000 word books. And I'm like, so it all depends, I guess. So.
Are your books 200,000 words?
No.
Oh my
Personally,
God.
no. They range from 130,000, since again a little more on that kind of high fantasy, not epic fantasy side of things. But 130,000 is like usually my larger size, and I just wrote what I qualify as very short one at 70,000 words.
So you are putting the words out there. How long do you take for planning? Like, okay, you've got a brand new idea. Are you drafting still on other ones and working on the new ones? Like,
Yes, I
is that the
have that.
pace of like being indie published? Like,
Yeah, it's for me. I like having different stages because I also know my best time to write is during the morning, so I can sit down and already have that chapter kind of more or less plotted out. I know what I'm working on. I can sit down and knock it out, and then when I get to a different part of the day a little later on, can be able to kind of switch focus to maybe plotting out another book, editing a book, whatever it needs to be, posting on socials and doing the marketing thing, which is oh so much fun. Actually, I do enjoy it to an extent. It just does take a lot of work for the marketing.
it's so much work. I saw someone yesterday talking about like if you think about you should be writing or, writing your book or working on marketing, they're like, go write your book. And I'm like, yeah, that's just not
Yeah,
like always doable. You
sure.
have to do these sorts of things. And it's fun to talk about books. Like
Yeah,
you know, that's
it's
part of the job too. Well, I think that's really, really smart that you have that morning blocked off for drafting. Like I love planning books. I do love writing, but I get in my head quite a bit with drafting. And so it becomes like more um, of a chore. And so I think that if you can get that flow early, that's good. I do see a question here. What is my favorite aspect of world building? Can I answer that?
oh yeah, yeah. One of my regulars always loves to ask this one, so go for it.
Okay, my favorite aspect of world building. Uh, so I love coming up with magic systems, although it is my great torture sometimes. I think it's fun to find sort of um, different magic systems that are a little like unexpected. Um, and in the books I'm working on now, there's a lot of like things are already built, but I'm exploring a different type of magic within this same world, so that's
Mhm.
interesting. So that would be one of my top things. I love to visit night markets in my world. Like I love building out like ordinary things, like how people shop and what they might
Yeah.
acquire there. I love figuring out what's in my characters' pockets because I think that tells you a lot about who they are.
Hmm.
I'm not so great at like deciding on politics and things like that. And you write epic fantasy, you write these big like dark ones. I love reading those kinds of books, but I have not yet engaged on that kind of level. So that would be a fun challenge is to write a much more um, like I love political thrillers. Like I love to read spy books. I'm deeply
Hmm.
interested in World War II spy fiction. I love everything Kate Quinn writes. I would love to write something in that sort of um, densely like
Yeah.
complicated world, but I haven't done that yet. So for me right now, favorite aspects come down to magic and then just ordinary things and like what does ordinary life look like in this world? But there are challenges waiting. So what about you, Catherine? What are some of your favorite? world building
Well, I
aspect.
mean, you kind of touch. I mean, it's so much fun to build out a world. And since I typically am a second world fantasy author, so I don't really base my books on our world, I get to, work from scratch, so to speak, and kind of build outward. But for me, I love seeing things work together and this, synergize almost in a way because one of the approaches I like to take is when you're creating cultures and communities, what aspects of the world around them made them that way? If
Yeah,
you have, characters that move in a particular region or geography, what is it about them that they change and what are they changed by it? And it helps create like the cultural aspects of people. So I do enjoy that. But then again, as a high fantasy author, creating creatures is a lot of fun.
yeah, that's
And,
true. Yeah, I love that quote that like, geography is culture. Like that's true in our world and I think in fantasy worlds. But yeah, creatures are quite a lot of fun. I really enjoy like in the Hyacinth Labyrinth there was all these like tasks or not tasks, but like different areas of the labyrinth. So I love a good like magical task or magical riddle or something like that
yes.
too. Yeah, creatures though, that's very fun. I haven't done a ton of those, but
I mean, it all depends on what your story needs. And if
yeah.
you're basing it where it kind of falls a little bit more on, in our world or even a low fantasy setting, you may not need all the fantastical, monstrosities or entities running amok. You could be just fine with things that look human or something that's very relatable and understand, something that we understand as a reader and just add the little bit of magic and it changes everything so dramatically. So
It does, right?
yeah.
I also like thinking about dragons and like what, dragon like in this book there's a tiny pocket-sized dragon, which is a totally different thing to take on a road trip than a giant dragon, and
Very
like
true. Probably,
logistics
yeah, I was gonna say probably easier to feed and everything. And
to hide and but you lose the transportation aspect.
yep,
So
yep. So the pros and cons: little
yeah, yeah,
versus big dragons. There you go. That sounds like a fantasy panel for someone.
yeah. Well,
How
talk to me about your characters' relationships. Like, are you writing like romantasy? Is there a lot of things
I
like that in your
focus
books?
I do not consider myself a romance writer, but because romance is a slice of life, I make sure that that element of romance is shown, in some way, shape, or form. Because characters, be it, the coming of age teenagers, you're gonna have the young love versus people that may have seen stuff and are dealing with things, and how that can affect their relationships, not just on a romantic sense, but just on a just uh, friendship level and thereof, or family relationships. So it really all depends on the character and story that's needed. But yeah, I don't consider myself a romance writer, though there's always an exception to the rule. And one of the books that I don't know if I'll have slotted for next year or if I'll push it off one more year, but it will be my first romantic dark fantasy, not a romantasy. I can't really write happy things. But a romantic dark fantasy that was inspired by Cyrano de Bergerac, if you are familiar with
Yeah,
that play. So it's a fantasy retelling of that story. But
wow, that's cool. I love that.
yeah, retellings can be fun. And that's one of the
Yeah.
things that I like to do is I usually am working always on one type of retelling and then something that's a novel. Because I love creating my own worlds and characters and, situations, magic systems, but something about retellings, one, you kind of have that blueprint of the story down, which makes the planning kind of quicker, but to changing things that you may be familiar with and adding a different twist to it is always kind of fun.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I just got a bunch of T. Kingfisher books out of the library, and like they do retellings so well and so differently. Have you read any of those?
Not yet. I am a
So like,
terribly slow reader, and I wish I could catch up to everybody. And I will say catch up because I went into this little rabbit hole, which I was very happy with, of reading all the ancient epics of like sagas and Eddas and Ramayana and Odyssey and all that stuff. And I love that. But coming out of that and looking around at what modern fantasy and iconic fantasy has been, it's like, wow, I need to catch up on some of this.
yeah,
I'm missing
absolutely.
a lot.
Okay, well, T. Kingfisher is very accessible. Lots of novellas, lots of interesting retellings. But one that I love is the Fall of the House of Usher retelling.
Yeah. Ooh,
Um,
I'm
oh,
writing.
I can't remember because we're in the moment. I can't remember exactly what
Yes.
it is. But if you look it up, and they do a bunch of different other ones that are just like the core of the story is there, but as you're saying, you
Mhm.
get to make it different. So I don't know. I think like I have a retelling on submission right now that I loved doing and I lived with for so long. It's a Greek retelling, like a sapphic gender swapped one. Um,
Nice.
and I don't know if it'll get bought, but I love it so much. I might just have to publish it if it doesn't, because I
Well,
would
if
love to
it's
keep writing retellings. Like I have this literature background. I have so many stories that I
yes.
would love to do. So do you have a favorite retelling you've written?
All right, well, it's always the next one I'm working on. But I was just going to say, if it's Greek right now with the Odyssey coming out in a few weeks, and then for musical fans, Epic the Musical is going to
Yeah.
be transformed into an animated series. So, Greek myth is on everybody's mind, and I love myth based retelling. So, actually, my next book that I'm going to be releasing this year is my Greek myth, the first one of a duology based on the story of Atalanta and her life and her journey as one of Greece's only female heroes, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So
Did
it'll be
you read
fun.
Jennifer
But
Said's Atalanta?
no, okay. Here's the thing: is I've not read someone else's specific version of a story based on a focal character that I'm going to write because I don't want to feel like I'm ever going to be accused of
Yeah.
taking someone else's inspirations or ideas. After I publish it and everything, I may go back and read some of the ones that people talk about. But I am very cautious about that because I don't want someone to be like, hey, you read hers. And so I'm
Yes.
like, no, no, no.
I think there's so much room. That makes perfect sense. I think there's so much room. There's so many Medusa retellings
Oh,
out
yeah.
there, for example. Like, but everybody does it differently. I just read Iona Gray's like I Medusa, which was different than every other like there's a book called Medusa Sisters, which I just love, that is different from I Medusa. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there is space for so many retellings. So I will look forward to reading your Atalanta
Oh,
yarn.
perfect. Thank you. Yeah, no, it should be a lot of fun, at least for me. But then again, I like darker stories and all Greek stories. If you read it long enough, it gets dark.
It does. Absolutely agree with that. Um,
So let me ask you, since we've been talking about writing a lot, how do you like to connect or find readers? You're coming from, again, a little more traditional background versus someone like me that's self-published, but how do you connect and reach readers?
so it's so interesting you should say that because I think that my publisher does a lot of
Mhm.
connecting with like library markets and school markets and retailers and things like that. Um, so I feel like it's my job to kind of put a face on that and, connect with the readers. And I do think what indie writers like you are doing is phenomenal to connect with readers. So I'm only active these days on TikTok and Instagram. And I have a Blue Sky and a Threads, but I don't use those as much. And I do try to post every day, although I'm coming off of a big promotion cycle and a big book tour and things this last month. So I've been a little tired and a little slower to publish on TikTok. I do have like a content schedule that I try and make, and I'm always torn. I don't know if you feel this way between like I'm not a content creator. That's not my job. Um, Nor do I want to like make commercials all the time for my books. What I want to do is talk to readers. And so, I mean, a lot of the connections I do end up being people I meet at events or people
Yeah.
who I bump into. I feel like on Instagram, there's a bit more like people talking to me in my DMs. But I mean, you and I met this way. So there is some of this on TikTok. And yeah, so I don't know. It's very much social media. It's very much like I do talk about other things besides my books that I enjoy, and I think readers like that too. So I talk about like I like antiques, I like art museums, I talk about books that I love. I talk about being a writer, though I don't make that all of my content. Just here's what's hard this week, or here's what's going well, and yeah. So that's kind of how I try and find people. I do find that a lot of people I meet online are writers as well. I don't know. I stay out of reader spaces though. I won't go on my Goodreads. I don't want
Yeah.
to. I That's not good for my mental health, nor is it like those are our reader spaces. So
Sure. Yeah. And there is that kind of, it's not really a true dichotomy because authors are readers too. So that's where the water gets a little murky because it's like, well, we're readers too. We want to talk about what we like to read, and then, but we're also writers. And so there is that kind of, there's always that conversation. Should you not? To what extent should you? If you do it, et cetera, so on. But I definitely get that whole, leave readers their ability to say what they like to say and express themselves the way they want to express themselves. But we also have to find ways to build a connectivity with people, and be it face-to-face events, which I thoroughly enjoy, but I am one of those oddball extrovert writers out there because a lot of us are just introverts. And so I actually don't mind the face-to-face, yet I know that I want to keep a balance in my life and not let it be all consuming. So I don't want every weekend filled with events and stuff like that. I want to be able to have other hobbies and passions be able to have, manifest themselves. So trying to find that balance and posting through here. It's one of those, another way you can do that with the understanding that people are fascinated with who you are behind the scenes. So
Yeah, and I'm very like I love
other things. Yeah.
Yeah, I do love face-to-face events, and my publisher has sent me on a couple, like on tour and to a couple big conventions, and I'm going to another one in Chicago soon. Like, I love doing those things, but I am also kind of private about, like, I don't talk about my family
Yeah.
online. I don't use them for content. And so that has been an interesting balance because I do think readers want to know about your life,
Mhm.
which I'm more than happy to share to a certain extent. So I do find that balance a little bit tricky. And I think there's some writers that do it extremely well. Here's me making a smoothie every morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, there's some people I think who go too far because it's all of their kids, and I just don't think that's safe. So I don't know. I'd say I'm always figuring that out,
Yeah.
but I do think readers can genuinely be very lovely people. And I love talking to people about books. So like, I think that if you keep that in mind as you're going through this, it can be like, there can be moments of genuine connection. And there were people who, came to some of my events on book tour who were people I met via Instagram DMs who have since become friends. And so I love that. I will say with being readers, I think one thing authors have to keep in mind is that these are your colleagues. So I will never, ever, ever, I still use Goodreads. If I really love a book, I'll put a 5-star review. I will never put less than a 5-star review up on Goodreads. I will never badmouth a book on here. I don't think that's professional. I don't think it's very nice. And I don't, I don't want to be tagged in bad reviews. So and I won't do that. So I will only recommend books that I love or I have enjoyed. So that's how I still interact with it as a reader. But I do. There's a lot of things that go on in book talk that I just won't participate in.
Yeah. There's
Normally
that book drama.
I won't jump into the most recent drama. But behind the scenes, like I'm still donating against book bans and things like this. Like there's still, you can do the work without shouting about the work you're doing
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, and I totally agree with the whole aspect of when you are an author, you have to start looking at other authors as, like you say, colleagues. And we are still a very small community. If you're in it for long enough, you're going to start knowing each other and everything, and word can get around if you are particularly, one way about someone or their writing or a person, them as an individual. So we have to treat each other, as colleagues and think of it that way. And that's why I kind of like what you did. I've backed away from posting reviews of books, but what I will do is if there's a book I like, I'll mention it. I'll be mentioning, I'm not going to give you a star rating or anything, but I will be talking about it. So you will know I like it. And I will post about, maybe images of what I've just read and what I am reading and what I'm planning to read next. And so people kind of get a feel of where I'm, what I'm exposed to in the reading space. But again, it's not a review because again, I'm an author, so I have to approach it a little differently.
I think it would be just such a bad form to be like, oh, I hated this book. Can you believe this trash? Like, and you're talking about someone else who's like, you might meet at an event, or you might have the same publisher someday, or end up on a panel with them. Like, no, that's just not a good idea. But yeah, if you love a book, talk about it. That's okay.
Yeah. So with you and your experience of doing a book tour, because I know there are a lot of authors who will do events, and especially on the indie space, we arrange our own events and all that stuff, but doing a traditional tour is a little different. So do you have any like pros and cons or recommendations for people who might want to even plan one themselves of What do you
Yeah,
recommend?
sure. So this was my first book tour. I've done lots of other events, and I've my publisher, my young adult publisher is great. So they arranged everything on this tour. I think the way they look at it, and maybe this would be smart for indie authors, is like look at where your books do best, like which
Mhm.
markets. My publisher is in Georgia, but they didn't send me to Georgia. They sent me to the Midwest and then the East
Mhm.
Coast. So I'm on the West Coast, so I can do all those sort of things myself. Um, but yeah, I guess my advice would be so my book tour was 5 cities over 5 days with like a travel
Yeah, that's a
a
lot.
day on the top, the front end. But it was a lot of like 3 in the morning wake up calls to get to the airport at 5. Um, and that was just because there was only like a handful of flights. That was very, very intense. So I guess my first advice would be like build yourself enough time to get to where you need to go. But also, if you have time, build in a little extra so you can go. So one of my days, I got to Detroit at like 6 in the morning, and I thought I could check into my hotel, and I couldn't. It wasn't ready, so I had all this time in Detroit before my event later that evening. So I went to breakfast, I went to a bookstore, and then I went to the art museum in Detroit. You may have seen me posting
Um,
videos about this. I will keep posting videos about this because I love art museums. And the Detroit Institute of
yes.
Art is, oh, it's incredible. It's the best, one of the best museums I've ever been in. It was astonishing. Um, and I had such a nice, like 3, 4 hour interlude of just like wandering this museum and refilling my creative well. So I guess that would be one of my pieces of advice is like, even though you have a rigorous travel schedule, find things you can do. I went to a couple gardens. I went to this museum. That was a very nice way to feel like a human in the
Mhm.
midst of like early wake up calls and many flights. I also had friends in every city I went to. So
Nice,
it
nice.
became more than just like I'm here to sign books or I'm here to do an event.
Mhm.
It was I'm here, like my co author and I spent 2 days together in Boston and Connecticut, which was wonderful because we live on opposite coasts. So we never get to hang out for like long
Oh
periods
no.
of time.
Yeah.
So that like this was a book tour, but it was also a friend tour and meet readers
Mhm.
and go to cool places, places you might not expect to be like. I never would have thought of like, oh, Detroit, that's gonna be like the best cultural experience of my year, but it was awesome. So it doesn't all have to be like New York and Los
Mhm.
Angeles and London.
Mhm.
You can be surprised in many places. Yeah, so build yourself rest time, build yourself refill the well time. Make those connections with lots of local indies. I signed in Boston. I think I signed at 9 bookstores just popping in, which was great because it was like lots of little,
Mhm.
like meet the bookseller, talk to them about your books. Like I think this business is built on networking.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you're not just meeting readers, you're meeting booksellers who are also readers. The more of those connections you can put out there, the better it is. It's just people meeting you, talking to you. I've got an event coming up, like what you talk about. It's with a local, I think it's a salon, but it's like a book fair later on, and there will be indie authors there. And like, I don't know, I like doing those kinds of things. So I think it's not all these formal.
Mhm.
It doesn't always have to be a formal publisher arranged book tour as
Yeah.
well. Though it is nice. Like I did not, I expensed everything, so I can imagine that could get quite pricey if you send yourself on a book tour. But I think it's worth doing at least once in your career, just because it's fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about the like. I don't know if it's a good return on investment. Like I have no idea how many books I sold from doing that.
Mhm.
But it is a nice career goal, and
Yeah,
yeah,
no, those are always kind of fun because every author has their own goals, and some of them are like what you would expect, and others are just like simple things. And the one I've been repeating a lot is I would love to have someone, like whoever's listening to this, remember this. I would love to have someone cosplay as one of my characters, and I just walk around and see them at an event. Those are just like the little things that I think are
yeah,
fun. That are those kind of little achievements as an author in a career. But since I know you're going to be leaving early, let me make sure I ask a couple of my go-to questions.
yeah.
One of which
And we can do
is
this until like we'll do 5 till like that's fine. I can. I
okay.
just need to
No,
log
just
into
make
my
sure. I
Zoom.
just know I don't want to like
You're good.
you running around and needing to do
You're
stuff.
good.
So, but outside, you mentioned this earlier, but we'll reiterate. Outside of book talk, where else can people find and follow you? Do you have a website, a
Oh yeah.
newsletter, and any other socials? You did mention, I think them earlier, so I know I had noted Instagram and Blue Sky question mark.
Yeah. So I am on Instagram. It's the same username as here. I do have a website. It's jamiepacton.com. I send out a newsletter every month. I've done, oh, I'm so proud of myself, every month since January this year. Because before it was like every few months or
Mhm.
maybe once a year. So I do have a newsletter that goes out every month, and it's a little bit of me thinking about whatever's on my mind that month. And then I share cozy updates, creative updates, curious updates. So that's art museums or cozy living. So it is more than just like, here's what's happening in my book world. So if you're interested in kind of more of a behind the scenes of my life, I think that's probably a better way to do it. Yeah. So those are my four kind of platforms.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then one of the other ones is, where can people get your books and what formats are they available in?
Okay. All my books should be available online at any like Barnes& Noble, Amazon, indie bookstores carry them. I love an indie bookstore, so a lot of and on my website there's links to all of them. Some of my other books, the older contemporary books, are a little harder to find just because it's
Yeah.
been a couple of years now. So I'd say most of those are online. My local libraries have them. I don't know, libraries here carry all my books, which is amazing. So, and I think this is one thing people don't know, but if you request that your library buy a copy of a book, that can help an author just as much um, as, buying it. Like, oh, we love when you buy books, but there's a lot of books to buy. So,
Mhm.
if you can request it at a local library, that's a really great way to support an author.
Yeah, no, that is one of those things that there are so many ways that you can support the authors and the writers you really enjoy and love. That doesn't have to cost you much of
Yeah.
anything. There are a lot of free things. And yes, requesting a book at a local library is definitely on that list. If people have not been aware of that, you should check
Yeah.
that out now.
Did you know though that like in Canada and I think in UK that authors get paid when they check out book? Like if people check out your books, you get a check at the end of the year based on like there's a small like just a small like bit of money, but that's wild.
I didn't know that about checking out books. I do know, again, getting into the library space as independent author, depending on how the library gets the rights to your book, you can be paid per digital read or digital listen if
Oh
you have an
yeah.
audiobook too. I mean, it's not much, but it's still one per thing. That's one of the options. And the other one is the library gives you a lump sum early on thing. So they don't have to pay you, the royalties essentially.
So
So
interesting.
different
I
ways.
didn't know that. You asked
Yeah.
me too. My books are available in ebook and audiobook and all of those. Again, that's all on the website. But yeah, you should be able to find it anywhere you get ebooks and
I
audiobooks
love
too.
that. So actually, with your audiobooks, have what level of contact or relationship have you been able to or not been able to develop with a narrator for your audiobooks? Because that's very different for me because I'm very hands-on approach. So I'm just now fascinated at that.
So all my audiobooks have been done by Penguin Random House Audio. A lot of them, even the ones. So this is Peachtree Teen, who contracts with Penguin Random House for distribution, and then like if you go to my website, it's going to be on a Penguin Random House page. And then my adult books are published by Del Rey, which is a Penguin Random House imprint. So I've only worked with Penguin Random House. They come to me with, they're wonderful. They come to me with like a selection of narrators usually. And then you can choose just based on listening to samples. And then your narrators go record. Usually, you have to give them a pronunciation guide and just some clues about accents or things. I've actually the same. So Jeremy Carlisle Parker has recorded many of my audiobooks. They did Vermilion. Well, actually, all of my young adult books have been done by Jeremy, and then our adult books have been the same two narrators, Jeremy, and then another narrator, Danny. And we love them. Like my co-author and I love them. Like we're in a little group chat together. So I mean, I feel like I've gotten very lucky to work with the same audiobook narrator and narrators pretty consistently. I don't know what that'll look like going forward. We'll see. What about you though? Do you pick yours and then do you help
I
record?
I do. Again, the pro and con of being independently published is we micromanage everything.
Yeah, so I just do not have the bandwidth for that. I admire what you do.
Hey, well, I mean, that's the thing is I've always been, I am a little bit of a control freak. So I do like certain things at certain ways and everything. And so that is a pro. But then again, the downside is it would be nice to have someone, take off some of the loads of like, I don't have to worry about this and that. So again, pros and cons. for any type of publishing. But yeah, when it comes to narrators, I do select them, and I've done it various ways where I've had people audition, had open auditions. I've had people, hear about my stuff and reach out to me because they're like, "Ooh, I'm interested in this project." And then I've also reached out to other people by discovering them, either hearing snippets on various narration platforms, or there are narrators now a lot on various social media spaces that are always showing clips of their work. And if you find some that you like, it's not unheard of to go out and reach out to them and be like, "Hey, are you open? Would you be into this project?" And a lot of them will be, as long as time commits and finances, work well, they'll be open to that too. So I've done a little bit of everything with my various series that I have kind of lurking in the background.
God, that's so much to manage. Again, there are teams of people doing that for me, so I don't have to think about it. And I really think that's great. But do you you have the control. Are you paying these people up front too? And then,
Depends on, the nice thing about indie publishing, there's so many ways to go about it. And so I've done a little bit of the whole gamut, but without narrating myself. I'm not going to narrate my own book. I know authors that will do it, and they're way more talented than I am. I'm not going to do that, but that is an option. What I've done in the past is either pay people outright for the production cost and their time, their energy, and putting it together. I also have one series, which is my YA series. It's the only one that's exclusively through Audible, because I did a 50-50 split on royalties with my narrator for that series. So I didn't have to pay her up front, but for the next, I think it's like a 7-year interim, any royalties we earn, we split 50-50. So that was nice earlier on, especially when I was trying to balance converting some of these other series at the same time to audiobooks, because they're not cheap.
yeah, oh, I can't imagine. So did you get an Audible exclusive? Like, did Audible publish that, or?
So what you can do is they have a platform called ACX, and you can choose to either be exclusive and then they give you a higher cut. And then you also are open to some options like the whole 50-50 split too. Or you can be wide and then, sell through them, but also put your audiobooks in other platforms. And so again, depending on what book or series, I've done a little bit. So I have 2 of my series that the audiobooks are widely available. That's why you can find them in libraries and stuff like that. And then my YA series, just because per that contract, I have to stay exclusive for that 7-year interim. So they're only found there. But I mean, it's pros and cons for everything. And that's the whole thing, is when you're publishing, even for you have to read the fine print of contracts that you're doing. So I'm sure you understand that. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I'm going to try and find your books on Audible then, because I love an audiobook.
Yeah, well, they're all
Audible. I'll find it.
Yay!
Cool.
But let me ask you also, since I know you're going to be running, is there anything you wanted to cover that we haven't covered, or any question you wanted to ask that we haven't had a chance to ask, since I know time is short?
I mean, not really. This has been great. I'll just sit here and yap with you about writing and publishing and the differences. I, of course, am stuffed with questions. I feel like I should interview you about the differences between indie and traditional publishing, because I think it is like we're having similar experiences in the writing, perhaps, but when it comes to a lot of what comes next,
yes,
that's where our paths diverge so dramatically, which is fascinating, right? Like you said, you would go hybrid at some point. Would you ever? Yeah. So I don't think you have anything else to ask me.
No, like
I'm good.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, it's the hybridization thing is depending on the project. If it made sense with the right publisher, the right contract, I wouldn't mind that, because the idea for me is when I am independently published, I make higher amount of profit margins, but you have to do the work to get your book out there. And so there's that pro and con. If you're trad, as you know, some of that is work you don't have to do, which is very nice. Again, from the people I've talked to in trad, I know whatever your royalties are, whatever your shares, usually a little less, but again, you get that thing of having your books everywhere and you don't have to necessarily get them into the store. So again, you're having more eyes on your work early on. So again, the pro and cons. So for me, the idea of hybridizing and having one series one way and then the rest another way, then if you like one book, you like the other, and it kind of helps flow both ways. That's my dream. That's what I think. I could be lying to myself, but that's my dream.
I think that sounds like an amazing dream, and I think there's a lot of authors that have done that very successfully, like
Hmm.
Rebecca Thorne and
Yep,
I think
absolutely.
Katie Roberts. Katie Roberts was indie published, right? And then went
She might have been. Hang on,
traditional.
Rebecca Thorne, and actually, I know more and more authors now that are hybridizing and or jumping into trad. On here, there's a young man, Marshall J. Moore, and his first traditional book that is through Penguin Random is coming out, and he's writing cozy horror coming out in
Oh, that's great.
September. So,
Yeah,
but he has Indian, and he has a small press series, and so he's done a little bit of everything. And so fun stuff, though.
it is. What an exciting time, right?
It is. But I won't keep you since I do know
Okay.
you have switched
Thank you.
over. But if you ever want to do this again and talk a little
Yeah.
further about, either the ins and outs of the publishing or more about your characters and your various series, let me know. And I will let you know if when this platform's nice and I'll be able to hopefully repurpose this on my YouTube channel in a few weeks.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you for your time and your questions, and thank you to everyone who's here. And yeah, I'll DM you. We'll do this again and just catch up more, an ongoing chat.
Perfect.
All right, cool. Have a great day.
Have a great day and happy reading,
Thanks.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.